Well, hello again, everyone. So I'm back, and we are in the process of starting Chapter 3 of What Were the Twin Towers? Now, it's called Battle Plan. Now someone had to take Yamasaki's plans and turn them into real buildings. Guy F. Tozzoli chose an engineer named Ray Monti to be the construction manager. Monti was a great choice. He had been in the Navy and run the project like a military battle. He had a detailed plan of action that followed a just-in-time schedule. That meant all the pieces of the buildings, I-beams, pipes, wiring, even the bolts to hold everything together would arrive at exactly the moment they were needed. The first part of the project started March 21st, 1966, when crews began tearing down all the old buildings on the site. After that, the crew dug down 70 feet until they reached bedrock. Bedrock is a layer of super hard rock beneath the soil. That was where the bases of the towers would rest. The Hudson River was only 700 feet away. Half of the site was where the river had once run, way back when New York was called New Amsterdam. Over the next 300 years, the Hudson had been pushed west by landfill, old piers, dirt, junk, and even some old buildings. The engineers needed to be sure river water would not seep into the construction site, so they built what came to be called a slurry wall, just west of the towers. So before they build, they always have this kind of thing happen, where they get the shovels and pull the dirt out. And then here's this. So this is where the Twin Towers were. There's the support that they're talking about. And this is the slurry wall. And there's, I guess, the train tunnel? Tie back cables. So there was a lot that they had to go put into this. I don't know where the water is. I don't know if it's like down here or where. And this has anchors. Oh, if you can see all that. They dug trenches 22 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 60 feet deep. As they dug, they pumped a mixture of water and gray clay called slurry into the trenches. Then they lowered a 25-ton steel cage into each trench and filled it with concrete. They forced the slurry mixture up and out, where it could be used for the next piece of the wall. Over the next 14 months, crews repeated the process more than 150 times to surround an area that was 4 blocks long and 2 blocks wide. It was called the bathtub. It would prevent any Hudson River water from coming into the construction site. Now, the actual building could begin. That's really, really interesting. All right, Chapter 4. Up they go. Crews first laid a concrete base for 47 columns that would support the elevators in each tower. The elevator area formed the center, or core, for each building. The core also had space for utility areas, restrooms, and 3 staircases. Another 236 columns would support the outside walls of each building. Once all the columns were put in place, constructing the steel structure of the buildings began. By the spring of 1969, steel was in place for the North Tower core up to the 9th floor. Nice. Yamasaki designed the 2 towers without columns breaking up floor space inside. This was very different from older skyscrapers. Every floor in the towers was an acre in size. A huge open area went from the elevators to the outside walls. Tenants could design office spaces any way they wanted. The outside walls were load-bearing. This meant the walls helped hold up the building. Each wall unit was made of steel panels that weighed 22 tons. The elevator core and the outside walls were built at the same time. After the walls went up, the floors were put in. Then electricians, carpenters, and plumbers began their work. The Port Authority knew that erecting two 110-story buildings was an incredible challenge. For the World Trade Center towers, a new kind of crane was used. It came from Australia and was nicknamed the kangaroo crane. It made the job easier and faster. Before this, small skyscrapers were built with either derricks or crawling cranes. The crawling cranes had worked in front of the construction site, lifting up materials to workers. The cranes, however, were dangerous. Sometimes they collapsed. Yikes. That would be scary. Also, they could lift loads only as high as the length of the crane's arm. Derricks were built onto a landing of a building and lifted material up only as far as the next floor. Once the floor was finished, the derrick had to be taken apart and moved up. The whole process took a day and a half and was very tricky. Kangaroo cranes had a 120-foot tower that ended in an operations cabin with an arm stretching out over the edge of the building. The hopping came from jacks under the cabin that lifted it up as far as 20 feet at a time. The crane would lift 3 floors worth of steel. Once new tower sections were bolted into place, the crane hopped another 20 feet, and one more time the process was much quicker than taking a derrick apart and moving it. Once the building was finished, the kangaroo crane lifted a smaller crane to the roof, then workmen took the kangaroo crane apart, and the pieces were lowered to the street. The final step in construction was attaching a stylish aluminum skin to the outside of the buildings. This skin is called a curtain wall. It keeps cold or warm air inside the building and bad weather outside. Wow, it's just amazing how much work. How cool would it have been to be part of that building, being a construction on. Oh, wow. Amazing. As for windows, the trade centers were bronze-tinted glass, only 22 inches wide. Each window was set 10 inches deep into the building. This made for a more interesting look than just a plain flat surface. Together, the Twin Towers had 43,600 windows. Of course, the bigger a building is, the more people can work there. But more people mean more elevators, and elevators take up lots of space. How could the Trade Center elevators handle the 150,000 workers and visitors expected to come and go each day? A Port Authority architect came up with a smart plan. Each tower was divided into 3 zones. Zone 1 went up to the 44th floor. Zone 2 went up from the 44th floor to the 78th floor. Zone 3 went from the 78th floor to the 110th. Wow. Just crazy. Okay, so here's this when they're putting up the windows. Then here's what they were talking about with the elevators. Okay, so the dark spots was the express to top. Express to sky lobbies is the next color. Local service was the gray one. Sky lobby floors. I don't see where they would be. And then there's the mechanical floors, and then floor stops. Okay. So then there's zone 1. And they have escalators too. Oh. Zone 2 and zone 3. If you can see all that. It'd been neat to see what that looked like inside the Twin Towers. It really would have. It's just amazing how that all works. Each zone had elevators that only served its floors, but there were also going to be express elevators. Some went from the lobby to either the 44th floor or the 78th floor, and a couple went straight to the 110th floor. So if someone worked on the 66th floor, she could take She would take an express elevator to the 44th floor, then a local elevator to the 66th floor. The zone plan allowed elevator cars serving different zones to use the same elevator shaft. This cut down on space. The final plan for each tower called for 23 express elevators, 72 locals, and 9 freight elevators. The freight elevators also served basements, which had 6 levels. This was a total of 116 floors. Oh, Lord. All right, let's read Chapter 5. Love 'em or hate 'em? The first tenants moved into the North Tower in December 1970. Tenants moved into the South Tower beginning in September 1971. This was before the official opening. The Port Authority was eager to collect rent as soon as possible. I wonder if they have an exact date for that South Tower in September. That's interesting. The big opening day was April 4th, 1973. Even then, the Twin Towers were not completely finished, but almost 10,000 people already worked inside them. The governors of New York and New Jersey both spoke at the ceremony in the lobby of the North Tower. Nelson Rockefeller, New York's governor, was the brother of David Rockefeller, who had first dreamed of building giant skyscrapers in the neighborhood. Criticism of the towers came at once. One critic called them just glass and metal filling cabinets. Another said they looked like the boxes the Empire State Building and Chrysler Building came in. Plus, they had cost so much, $100 million, far above the Port Authority's original estimate of $350 million. The Port Authority announced that the complex was 80% rented, a big success. But real estate developers pointed out that a lot of tenants were large government agencies. They had sweetheart deals. This meant they were paying much lower rents than they would have elsewhere. But no matter if people loved the Twin Towers or hated them, New York City now had 2 giant new landmarks. New York City's tallest buildings. New York City has a long history of building skyscrapers that at one time or another were the tallest in the world. Built in 1930, the Chrysler Building, 1,046 feet tall, may be New York City's most beautiful building. However, it was its tallest for only 11 months. Built in 1931, the Empire State Building, 1,250 feet tall, beat out the Chrysler for the title of tallest, one of the most famous buildings in the world. It means a symbol of New York City. The Twin Towers, 1,368 feet tall, displaced the Empire State Building as the tallest in the world until Chicago Sears Tower opened in 1973. Finished in 2013, One World Trade Center, 1,776 feet tall, is often called the Freedom Tower and is currently the tallest building in New York City. As of 2015, the tallest completed building in the world was Burj Khalifa in Dubai. It is 2,716.5 feet tall and has 163 floors. Holy smolies. Okay, so there's the Chrysler Building. There's the Empire State Building. There's the Twin Towers. One looks like it's a little bit bigger than the other, but whatever. There's the One World Trade Center, like number 1, and then the Burj Khalifa in Dubai Tower. It's crazy. And I'll stop there for today. And I'll see you guys in the next video.